Hey everybody, this is Madhav here from Remote Marketing. I have a special guest in the house today. In case you've heard of the SEO tool Ahrefs, you'd probably know this guy. He's a CMO at that company, and Ahrefs currently makes over 50 million annually with a marketing team of 8 that is 100% remote. And you might add that they're bootstrapped and profitable. His name is Solo, Tim Soulo. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, I'm super glad that you're here. So, Tim, you know what? Let's just kind of start, with yourself. Like, who is Tim Soulo? And who was he before Ahrefs professionally? And like, how did he end up at Ahrefs?
Oh, I don't even know where to start. So first of all, Tim Soulo is a made-up character because my first name is not Tim and my last name is not Solo. Like coming from Ukraine, being born in Ukraine, and I lived there for 30 years. My actual first name and last name are quite complicated. So for the sake of having something that is more easy to memorize and write for people all around the world, I went with some call it pen name, other call it professional name. So yeah, Tim Soulo is my professional name actually. And before tapping into digital marketing and SEO, my first job in IT sector was technical support specialist in a hosting company. I was also working kind of remotely. We call it outsource. Because in Ukraine, there are generally the youth is quite well educated when it comes to English language, when it comes to technical skills, mathematics, physics, and stuff. So there was a huge trend in our country where companies from Canada, from the United States, maybe from Australia and Great Britain were outsourcing some of their stuff to Ukraine. It started with like more simple jobs like technical support, and eventually they started hiring developers, even salespeople sometimes. So yeah, and my first job was a technical support specialist. I started when I was on the second year of university, and I was technical support specialist for about 6 years. Before I understood that I want to do something else. I was also a DJ, so I was like having jobs at the same time. I was a DJ in the local nightclub, and I was also technical support specialist. And I understood that I cannot do technical support all my life. And at the same time, I didn't see myself like being Tiesto or like Marshmallow or whoever is like famous DJ these days. I didn't see my career path like that. And I also wasn't too interested in programming. And I was always a bad like web designer, so I cannot draw with my hands. I have even like problems. I'm a little colorblind, so I knew that design is not for me. So one thing that was left kind of in the digital space was marketing, and this is how I started tapping into SEO and all that stuff.
That's interesting. I remember I think I don't know if you still have that. You used to have your own blog called Blogger Jet, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, 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 yes.
Yeah. And I remember there was like this one time I'd subscribed to your, like when you subscribe to your newsletter, you have like this onboarding course and then kind of sell this content upgrade plugin, which you'd created,
Yes, yes,
right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. That was that like after Ahrefs? Was that before that?
No, this was immediately before Ahrefs. So
Mm-hmm.
at the time when Dmitry found me and reached out to me, I was actually again working remotely for a Russian company. I was based in Ukraine where I lived all my life, but I was working remotely for a Russian company, and I was also like marketer slash like product manager for them. So I was working on like building some online projects and at the same time marketing them. And because I feel they were not using my, I don't know, energy or ideas to the fullest potential, I started doing my own thing. So I launched that blog, Blogger Jet, and I had like those ideas with blogging. So I created 2 WordPress plugins because I couldn't find the suitable solution that I would like to use on my blog. I created 2 WordPress plugins. I started selling them, and as soon as I started getting some traction with those plugins, there was some growth. I think I crossed the $3,000 per month sales of both plugins, and I did that like in about half a year since launching the second plugin. So the growth was more. I was more or less happy with that because $3,000 when you live in Ukraine, this is some nice money. I was earning more money from my side project, more than 2 of my parents were earning like at their day jobs. So yeah, it was pretty nice growth trajectory. But then Dmitry reached out to me. He offered some like freelance work to start with, and then we quite fast we saw that we are a good fit for each other, and he offered me like a full-time position, so I had to actually abandon those side projects.
Got it. Okay. And I'm actually very curious, like when you said that you were in technical support and then you finally, you were a DJ, you were a designer, and then you kind of entered marketing. So how did you kind of, get introduced to marketing? Like how did you kind of develop skills in marketing?
So I got introduced just by a matter of chance,
Mm-hmm.
because I still remember to this date how it actually happened. So I remember it was summer, and me and my friend were sitting at the seashore. So Ukraine is near the Black Sea, so it's like an hour drive to the Black Sea. And I remember we were sitting on the beach, and I was discussing with my friend that like I'm going to graduate from university, and I don't want to pursue a career in technical support. And at the same time, I didn't want to be a DJ, so I was looking for other options, and programming wasn't interesting. And my friend said, so I have this other friend who is doing SEO, and he seems to be making some nice money, and there's some demand for it, and like it seems to be something interesting. It's not programming, it's not design, so it's something like in the middle of everything. You need to know a little bit of everything, and I thought it seems interesting, so why wouldn't I try? And I started looking for some kind of junior SEO position, which I landed quite easily because all the requirements that they needed from me on the junior SEO position is uh, decent knowledge of English and experience with kind of building stuff online. So by the time I had like my own forum for like local drum and bass community. This is like style of music. So I knew like how to buy a domain, how to connect it to hosting, how to install like forum scripts and such and such and such. So I had enough, and like with 6 years of experience working in technical support, I knew things like DNS, name servers, blah blah blah. So I had enough kind of foundational knowledge to start tapping into SEO and marketing. And yeah, I basically landed the entry-level SEO job and started reading Mo's blog, started watching Whiteboard Fridays every week, and this is how my journey into SEO started.
That's a fascinating background, man. But okay, so once you kind of joined Ahrefs, at what point in time did you kind of make your first hire in marketing?
As far as I remember, my first hire, so when I was leaving to Singapore, I didn't want my side projects to die, so I kind of offered my friend to take over, and I would be kind of guiding him. So I wouldn't be able to do a lot of work myself because I have a full-time job at Ahrefs, but I can at least tell him what to do to keep them alive. And so my friend, because he wasn't that experienced with online marketing and all that stuff, and he wasn't the one who like created those products, he didn't have a vision for like how to develop them and all that stuff. It didn't go super well, but the guy was smart. I knew him from primary school. We were friends for a long time. And so when I saw that he's not very successful developing those projects, I thought, maybe you should like abandon those projects and just join me at Ahrefs, and we could probably do more damage if like me and you would work together at Ahrefs, rather than you would be working on those projects with me, only mentoring you from time to time. So this was basically my first hire. I just transitioned my friend from working on my projects to marketing department at Ahrefs, and basically I started giving him some of the tasks that I didn't manage to do myself because of the lack of time or like other things. And yeah, this was my first hire. uh, yeah, it happened quite naturally.
And where's this hire like? Where is this person still at Ahrefs?
Yes, he's still at
Okay.
Ahrefs, yes.
And what does he do?
A little bit of everything. Like I myself do a little bit of everything. He
Mm-hmm.
also does a little. So he is kind of like extension of me. I
Mm-hmm.
still like whenever I get some email request and I feel that he can answer that email request as good as I do, I just forward it to him and he takes care of like, I don't know, different partnerships, different requests, different sponsorships requests, whatever. Usually, yeah, he's like an extension, kind of like my assistant or whatever. At the same time, he works on our SEO plugin for Chrome and Firefox. He's kind of product manager of that Ahrefs tool.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So that's interesting. And so when he and this person kind of joined like immediately when you joined Ahrefs, or was it probably like?
No, he joined in about half a year or maybe a year later,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because two things needed to happen. First, I saw that the projects weren't moving and were like slowly fading. So this was
Mm-hmm.
one of the concerns, one of my concerns. And second, as I was getting deeper into Ahrefs marketing, I knew that I understood that I cannot handle everything myself. I need help. I need someone to help me here and there. And this is how I hired my friend to work together with me.
Got it. Okay. And when you kind of hired him, like, did he move to Singapore or was he kind of working
No,
from?
no, he's still in Ukraine, and
Okay.
the thing is, he like established a small office in Ukraine, and
Mm-hmm.
we hired a bunch more people in my native town, because usually when you need to hire someone, the first place you look is your immediate like circle of friends and people you know. And my circle of friends and people I know was in my hometown in Ukraine. So this is why when I hired my friend, the easiest way to keep expanding our marketing team was to hire my friends and people who I know. I know what their strengths are. I know what is their work experience, etc. So we established a small office in Ukraine, and my friend was hiring and managing a few people there.
Okay. All right. Okay. So yeah, and that kind of points to the question, right? Like Ahrefs was probably or primarily a company that was based in an office, right? But it was very surprising to me when I got to know that the marketing is 100% remote, right? So was there any?
Not 100%,
Okay,
90%.
90%. Got it. Okay. Yeah, I remember that there are some in Singapore as well. So I
Yeah.
wanted to understand, like, how did you kind of facilitate that transition from co-located to remote as a team? Like, imagine a company that is based in the office. All processes are kind of kind of for the people that are in the office. Now you got to kind of get in one remote colleague into the team. So what baby steps or changes did you have to make to make it easy for a remote person to kind of blend into the team?
So as far as I remember, when I joined the Ahrefs, it had the policy of remote employees.
Okay.
Because I remember when I came to Singapore, I didn't see our CTO here,
Mm-hmm.
Chief Technical Officer. And to this date, our Chief Technical Officer is like all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot know where he is at any point in time, and he's like incredibly productive. He's incredibly smart, and I think that policy basically stems from our CEO and founder Dmitry. From the start, when I joined the company, we had quite a few remote employees already. So when I needed to make my first hire, and when I asked Dmitry, can I hire my friend who is in Ukraine? He would be working remotely, blah blah blah. Uh, there was no issue with that. Dmitry was okay, and yeah, the company was remote, was allowing remote employees even before I joined, so it wasn't a problem at all.
Okay, perfect. All right, so and if let's say if I'm sure a lot of startups kind of reach out for advice to you. If someone with like a co-located marketing team were to come to you and be like, hey, you know what, we're kind of considering going remote, or at least making our team remote first, what would be your advice to them?
Yeah, do it. Why not? I like to be honest, I think the way we operate as a company in general and as our marketing department specifically is quite unique, because one example is that a few months ago I tweeted a poll where I asked my followers how often do they do one-on-ones with their team, and one of the most popular responses, I think it was like 30% people do weekly one-on-ones with like members of their team. In my case, in almost 5 years of working at Ahrefs, I did maybe 3 one-on-ones with my team. So I think we're quite unique in our approach to hiring and management. And again, this stems from our CEO and founder Dmitry. This is his ideology. So he once told me that instead of hiring people that like need guidance all the time and that need check-ins or meetings or whatever, why don't we just hire like self-sufficient people who can operate on their own, and your job would be mostly to give them feedback after they do something, not like guide them what to do, but tell them feedback, okay, you did that well, and or you didn't do this well. So I think this is how our marketing department operates. I don't need to babysit people. I don't need weekly team meetings. I don't need one-on-ones or whatever, because I more or less talk to almost all members of my team more or less weekly via Slack. So we resolve issues that we have, or via email or whatever. We do have calls from time to time, but they are very, very infrequent. So yeah, each person is quite self-sustainable. They operate on their own, and I just, if I see that something goes wrong, I give them my feedback. If I see that we have like a major win, I pat them on the back, like publicly in our Slack channel. So I don't think that yeah, sometimes being in one place helps, like for bonding, for some projects and conversations to move faster because you can discuss them in person quite quickly. But for that we have retreats, and sometimes we kind of self-organize into meetups, or like if we go to conferences together, we also meet each other, we bond, we discuss some things. So I don't see any problem with working remotely and being even in different time zones, because for example, Sam, our video guy, he's in Canada, so we have almost 12-hour difference with him. So it is really hard for us to find the time for a call, because it's either early morning for me or like late evening for him. But at the same time, he operates amazingly, so I don't see any issues with it.
Yeah, you kind of summarized it well, because I think self-management is like one big thing, especially with a remote team, and you obviously got to meet in person. But yeah, so it's interesting that it's now a remote setup. So you were mentioning that Sam is is in Canada, and I've been like, Sam's done a terrific job with the YouTube channel, which obviously you started, but he's kind of really grown it. And this kind of comes to the one question that I've been really wanting to know. So I've been following the Ahrefs blog for a while. The content is like up there, is kind of like one of the most quality content pieces there, right? And you managed to kind of replicate that similar thing into YouTube videos as well. The quality of the content there is just up there. So what I wanted to understand from you, or ask you, is what is the definition of great content to you? Like, what are your quality benchmarks when you kind of look at great content?
Okay, let me start from some product placement. This is a very interesting question, because Uh, to a certain extent, the definition of great content is subjective. So I think when I joined Ahrefs, I brought my subjective view of what great content is, because, for example, I immediately wanted to redesign our blog. So if you put the URL of Ahrefs blog into archive.org and see how it looked like 5 years ago, I didn't enjoy the design. This is why I started immediately pushing Dmitry that we need to update. We need to update how we format content, like all those paddings, distances, the font size, the font type, the colors, everything. So yeah, I think great content starts even from how it looks, like before you even read the first sentence. This is why we also invested a lot of time, effort, and money into like custom illustrations that we're also kind of famous for. So yeah, there are a lot of things that come into great content: how it looks, how it reads, what is the actual information, what kind of value you have behind your articles. Are you just rewriting what others are saying, or are you have some unique things to say? So yeah, many variables, and I think I started shaping our vision of great content by writing myself, by my vision for the blog, etc. But then Joshua, our head of content, joined, and we had a lot of discussions. We were like forging our content guidelines together, discussing, arguing, etc. And then, for example, SQ joined, who previously had experience working at other companies, and he also provided his feedback on what he thinks is great content. And at the same time, each of us was reading a lot from other blogs, and we saw like how other people approach their content, and we saw how that content resonates with people. Like, what do people tweet, what do people praise, what do people say in comments? And this is how we were shaping our definition of great content further and further, and ended up with what we've ended up.
Yeah, and I love when you said that it also is the look of it. How it looks like. So on average, like let's say for an average piece of content, be it the video or like the written piece of content, how much time do you guys spend on like a piece of content?
We don't have a set amount of time that we would put into each piece of content, and we don't really have deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
It should take as much as it needs to. So sometimes you can write an article in a day, like you can create a first draft in a day. If you just need to share your own experience, you put like your thoughts on paper or Google Doc, whatever, and you're done. At other times, you need to perform a lot of research to see like what others have said about it, and if you can say something unique. Sometimes we actually need to perform some experiments, because we don't only want to give people advice, like what we think works, or how we think things should be done, but we also want to test those things ourselves. Some, like, quite often we write articles from our own experience, so we already have like past experiences and case studies to share. But oftentimes there are things that we think would work, but we want to take this a step further, and other than thinking that it would work, we would actually try them, usually like in our own marketing department, and we would share how it worked for us. So yeah, this is how we kind of ensure the quality of our content.
Okay, and then with the content, is there like a second opinion from other team members? Once, like let's say Joshua writes a piece of content, yeah, will you or Sam or somebody else kind of take a look?
Yeah, of course. I don't interfere with content that much these days, but
Mm-hmm.
when I was kind of onboarding Josh to our team, I was rigorously commenting on every piece of content, and there was quite often that we would work on a draft for like 3, 4, 5 days a week, and then after like weekend, you would reread it and understand that it's crap. We need to totally change an angle, and we need to rewrite it. And then we would write it. It happened quite a few times when we You froze.
Sorry, just 1 second. Yeah, that was on me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't plan it that well. It's okay. I'm gonna kind of edit that part out. Alrighty. I missed a little bit. You said Joshua. Sorry. Yeah, on the weekends you would kind of review the draft and it'd go shit, and then you.
Yeah, and we would rewrite it. And I don't participate in content these days, but guys give feedback to each other all the time. And we even have, like, if you scroll to the bottom of our articles, there is an author block, and within that author block we have contributors section, which gives credit to people who contributed to that article, because we I started to feel that it was unfair. That article might be written by kind of hive mind, collective mind, but only one person was getting all the credit for that article, and they
Mhm.
thought it wasn't fair. So this is why we created contributors section, where people who provided their thoughts, opinions, and ideas to the article are credited under that piece.
Got it. Yeah, I think I saw that on one of the vlogs you'd mentioned. You've got like the school author box as well. But all right. So the second thing that I also wanted to go from quality content is um, there was something that you covered in your vlog recently, which was also just if any of the listeners don't know what I'm talking about, Ahrefs has this SaaS vlog series. Pretty good. Highly recommend. Every 2 weeks, lots of behind the scenes information about how Ahrefs marketing works. Um, Now, and in that one of the episodes, you talked about blog translations, right? You're investing a lot in that, trying to tap into non-English markets, right? So, how did you kind of feel the need for that, and how are you going about, scaling that as a growth opportunity?
So feeling the need for that is quite an obvious thing,
Mm-hmm.
because you just try to do keyword research for different languages. Like, people search for link building in English, try to translate it to Spanish and see if people search for it, and you'll find out if there's a search demand or not. And at the same time, so we discovered that there's a surge demand for certain topics in different languages. And at the same time, all our content is already there. We don't need to spend weeks writing articles. We don't need to redo all the experiments. All the content is there, everything is there, all the structure is there. We just need to translate it to another language, which is a relatively easy thing to do if you're a native of that language, or if you know it perfectly. So this is and because at HS we try to stay small, we don't want to bloat our team by hiring a person for each and everything that we are trying to accomplish. So we thought a way out for us was to uh, kind of hire, recruit our users, the users of our software, our customers who are native in those languages or who are fluent in those languages, to translate our articles for them. They are perfect candidates because they know our industry, because they are our users. They know our platform. They are reading our blog, and yeah, so it was a no-brainer. And what we offered them, I don't remember what exactly are the terms, but something along the lines that we supply them with free access to our platform, and they should translate a certain amount of articles per month. I don't remember how many exactly. And on our end, we just kind of curate. So we are actually lucky to have one of our team members, Vlad. He knows, I think, 3 languages. So other than Russian, he knows Italian and he knows German and English. So for Italian and German translations, he can quickly like vet them and see if the translators are doing a good job or a bad, if they're trying to squeeze any like mentions or links that we don't want to see there, and whatever. So we have, because we're in Singapore, we obviously have some locals who know Chinese. So we also translate our articles into Chinese, and we have people who are able to skim those articles and again vet the translations. So yeah, on our end, we just kind of curate the whole process. We pick the topics that we pick, the articles that we want translated. We pass them to our kind of outsourced translators, and we get translated articles and publish them. This is pretty much the process. And there was another idea, because when I was at PubCon conference in Las Vegas, I met a person. I think he was an ex SEO professional from TripAdvisor, I think, if I'm not wrong. And he said that what they did at TripAdvisor, they used Google Translate API to translate pages of TripAdvisor to different languages, and Google didn't penalize them for that automatic translation. So what we thought we might try, there's another system called DeepL, which seemingly translates content even better than Google Translate. So we thought maybe we can just translate our entire blog with that DeepL thing, and then gradually improve the translations with human reviews. But when we tried DeepL on a few of our articles and we gave the source, kind of the translated articles, to our translators to see if it would be easier for them to kind of fix the translation by DeepL or translate the article from the scratch, all of our translators said that it was actually easier for them to translate from scratch because the DeepL translation was quite clumsy, and they spent more mental effort into understanding what the article is trying to say when it is written in that clumsy language, other than reading it in English and translating it immediately into their own language. So yeah, the idea with automatic translation and then improving those articles with human reviews didn't stick with us. And another funny thing is that Joshua was super anxious about this because he's very he cares about our blog quality a lot, and he was very anxious that if we use DeepL automatic translations, people will land on our blog, see those clumsy translations, even if we'll have disclosure that that article was translated with DeepL and we're going to improve the translation soon, blah blah blah. He was still very anxious that people will think less of our brand, of Ahrefs brand, if we do such a thing. So he was eventually quite happy that we didn't do this.
Yeah, I was also thinking the same. Like, how do you kind of ensure the quality of content kind of remains when you're kind of translating? But yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. But it's interesting. All right, so this kind of also kind of connects to another question that I see a lot of subscribers asking. Is that I'm sure that the blog translations was probably came from the idea for that might have come from a time when the SEO traffic was a little flat, right? Or maybe you weren't kind of, let's say, seeing a lot of growth like before. It was like a flat thing. So a lot of businesses face that. Like when I was at HubStop, we used to have we kind of hit the 50K, and then we were at 50K monthly traffic for like 6 months, and then we went up to 100, and then we were at 100K for another 3-4 months. So usually when someone sees this, when they kind of reach like the peak, where they kind of flatten out their traffic, what do you advise those people? Like, how do you kind of get past that flat curve of SEO? Like, what would be like the top 3 areas that you would urge them to look at for them to kind of move out of that flat and then start growing again?
So the interesting thing is that in our marketing department, we don't have any KPIs. So Dmitry doesn't have any KPIs for me. Dmitry, who's our founder and CEO. And I don't really have any KPIs for the members of my team. So in almost 5 years that I've been with Ahrefs, I never created a single quarterly or annual report for Dmitry. I didn't. So we don't really have any goals for our traffic growth.
Okay.
So Dmitry is not demanding from me that our traffic should grow each quarter or anything, and I'm not requesting from my team that our traffic should grow. We don't care about if your traffic has plateaued. So why did it plateau? Did you cover all the topics? Did you rank number 1 for all of them? If you really covered all the topics in your space and you rank number 1 for them and you hit a plateau, it is amazing. Like, why would you want to grow your traffic if you're already getting all the traffic for all the relevant keywords? Like, you nailed it. Enjoy it. Like, switch your efforts to something else. Like, for example, this is something that one of my team members asked me the other day. He said, like, it feels like we're running out of the topics that are super closely related to SEO to cover on our blog. what we're going to do next once we cover all of them. To which I
Mm-hmm.
replied, yeah, we're almost out of all the topics that are closely related to SEO, but do we rank number one for all of them? Of course not. So what we do is we keep updating and improving our content and promoting it more and doing some outreach to get backlinks so that we would rank like number one for everything. We would also look for opportunities to rank with 2 pages for the same
Mm-hmm.
query. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, if you search for keyword difficulty, I believe we still have 2 pages. One of those pages is my blog article. Another page is like the feature page on Ahrefs.com where we explain the functionality of keyword difficulty. Oops,
Mm-hmm.
you're freezing again.
Yep, I can hear you
Yeah,
perfect.
so we
Mm-hmm.
would look so we would look for this kind of opportunity, like can we rank more than one search result? But then if you rank for everything related to your business and you hit a plateau, just enjoy it and like keep this plateau. Why would you need to grow past that? Why would we need, for example, I'm always making fun, like when I'm speaking somewhere, I'm making fun of HubSpot blog, who have
Mm-hmm.
article how to make a GIF that is bringing them something around like 100,000 visits per month, and another article like how to type shrug emoji, which is also bringing them a ton of traffic. So yeah, like if at Ahrefs we would start targeting topics like I don't know, Instagram marketing or some
Mm-hmm.
Facebook cover images or whatever, those topics get a huge amount of traffic and they can hit KPIs easily. I can show Dmitry like insane growth of traffic from Google, but it wouldn't translate to business. Yeah, some
Mm-hmm.
people might argue about top of the funnel, about like people getting exposed to your brands or like converting them into leads, blah blah blah. But if a person is looking to freaking make a GIF image, you won't sell them Ahrefs, which is an SEO tool. Like it's like
Right,
two super
right.
distant things. So yeah, if you hit a plateau, think why did you hit a plateau? Did you cover all the topics? Do you rank number one for all of them? Did you try to rank with more of your? Is it even possible to rank more of your pages for the same query? Are there like different intents? Because like I said, for keyword difficulty, people might research read the article to understand what is keyword difficulty, or they might want to see which tools have this functionality. So like two different intents. This is why we can rank with like two different pages. Yeah, I see nothing wrong with hitting a plateau. You just switch your efforts to something else. Go into writing for Medium. Go into like doing podcast interviews. Go into figuring out how to optimize your Facebook ads, Twitter ads. Like tap into AdWords. There are like plenty of things to do.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. So, um, if I could ask you right now, SEO is obviously one major area of getting traffic onto the blog, right? What do you see as like the big content promotion areas in 2020?
Uh, to be honest, content promotion is an interesting topic in itself. I have an article, so if you Google for how to promote your blog,
Mm-hmm.
my post should be somewhere on the page one. Maybe it ranks number 5. It doesn't deserve to rank number 5. It deserves to be in top 3. So this is another thing that I was lately talking about. People usually are looking for shortcuts. So in Google, when they search for something, they would click on the result that is promising them the easiest way out. My
Mm-hmm.
article doesn't promise them an easy way out. It shows them things how they are. People don't, not everyone likes it, and this is why Google is not ranking my article as high. But yeah, the thing is, uh, content promotion is actually super similar to kind of product marketing,
Mm-hmm.
because content is your product. And the thing is, if your product is shit, for example, if I'm selling a fridge and my fridge is more expensive than alternatives, my fridge has less features than alternatives, the materials that I've used to create my fridge are weak, uh, are like bad, I won't be able to sell that fridge no matter marketing I use, because it is like open world, it is a connected world. And if someone would go to search for fridge reviews or like reviews of my particular fridge, someone would tell them that it's a shit product and you shouldn't be buying it. There are like many other great alternatives. But if your fridge is amazing, for example, I don't think there even exists a fridge with like built-in camera. So when you are shopping in the supermarket and you don't remember if you have any eggs left or not, you just open the camera and see like the contents of your fridge. You figure out that there are no eggs left, and so you buy eggs. I don't think there's a fridge that does this, but yeah, if you have a product that is like way more amazing than other products in the market, it would be super easy to promote it. It would be super easy to sell it, and people would talk about the product all the time. Because if you buy something awesome for yourself, you tell your friends, or if your friends turn to you for advice and you happen to know something awesome that would benefit them, you will tell them. Content is exactly the same. If your content is not interesting, if it doesn't stand out from the ocean of other content, you would have a hard time promoting it because no one would care. But as soon as you create a piece of content that stands out, that people like, that people send each other, the word of mouth will be your best promotion. People will just keep sending it to each other, tweeting it, sharing it. You won't even have to promote it a lot. It will make its way to Reddit. It will make its way to I don't know, to Twitter. Everywhere it will just promote itself. So this is, for example, something that happened. I have a nice example. Back in the days when I wasn't working at Ahrefs, I wrote what I thought was an amazing piece of content about what I called strategic writing. It was a huge article with a lot of advice, and I reached out to Rand Fishkin and told him, so here's the article. I spent a lot of time on it. It's like amazing. Can you tweet it? To which Rand Fishkin replied that the article looks decent, but I didn't see like a lot of unique advice. So I cannot really tweet it because I
Ouch.
have to be like, yeah, I have to be mindful of my followers. And I totally understand him. Like a ton of people are following him for unique advice. They want something new, something interesting. He cannot just tweet commodity. He cannot tweet something that is like okay, but not perfect. So he didn't tweet my article. Lesson learned. But at the same time, I think 2 years ago or something, we wrote and published an article on Ahrefs blog about our experience sponsoring podcasts, where we spent like something $50,000 or something on podcast, and we shared our experience, what worked, what didn't work. And Rand Fishkin tweeted that article saying that it's an amazing piece of content, and we didn't even have to reach out to him. He just saw someone tweeting it, he skimmed through or read it, and he tweeted it because it was an amazing piece of content. So that's the answer to promoting content. To promote your content, first and foremost, you have to create something amazing that would be worthy of promotion. That's the answer. This is the foundation, and like everything else is just secondary.
Right. Okay. That is excellent advice. But I have a concern here. It's, let's say, for example, with Ahrefs content, right? It is a lot of it is obviously personal experiences. Like you talked about podcast advertising, right? That was something that one of the team members kind of faced. Even a lot of the content promotion, the strategic writing pieces. These are things that kind of come from your heart. A lot of times, let's say a marketing lead joins a company about IT security, right? And this person does not have any information about IT security. So how do they write great pieces of content? Like that's a big challenge there, right? So what would they do then?
Yeah, they shouldn't be writing that piece of content in the first place. Why would you why would you want to learn about I don't know, what did you say, website security or whatever,
Yeah,
from
yeah.
someone who is not a professional?
Mm-hmm,
Because like if like SEO lead or like I don't know, copywriter or whoever writes an article about website security and manages to rank it somewhere in top 3, as soon as some website security professional, a real professional, starts his own blog and
mm-hmm.
writes a decent article with his like first-hand unique experience and amazing tips about website security, he will rank, and like everything else will get outranked just because of what I explained. Because people would be more likely to link to him, to reference his article, to send his article to his friends, because they know this is an expert on website security, as opposed to some art. Because a lot of blogs, a lot of company blogs, when you open their content and try to find an author, they don't even mention who's the author of the article. Or
Right.
it would be
Yeah.
some random dude I write content at this company, blah blah blah. This is not the same as having like a real professional write this content. So I think I might even have an article, a rant at Medium on that topic, where I say that uh, the most qualified person in the company should be writing content. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, my situation at Ahrefs, I'm chief marketing officer, which is kind of like a big title, blah blah blah. And usually, chief marketing officers are like some, like, I don't know, godlike people who are like you don't even know what they're doing, blah blah blah. I actually write content. I write a lot of content myself. I write articles because I feel that I have some unique knowledge and some unique insights to put into those articles, because people who are like have less experience than me, who work in our company, they might not have this experience, so they wouldn't be able to create the same piece with the same amount of unique advice as I can. So when I'm the most qualified person to write an article about something, I would just sit and do this. So it would be amazing if our CEO Dmitry would find time to write some of his own articles about how he does things and see things, but unfortunately he doesn't have like capacity to do this. So yeah, as soon as like the most qualified person would write an article, they would get all the credit and outrank everyone else.
Right. Yeah. Have you never tried with Dimitri of kind of like using a ghostwriter or something, like just interviewing him for like an hour and kind of just capturing his thoughts and using a ghostwriter?
We tried, but Dmitry is a perfectionist, so yeah, it's like a very long process of refining a draft. And yeah, overall the topics that Dmitry could be covering are mostly like technical in nature, so they are
Hmm.
quite complex. So yeah, it's really hard to just hire a copywriter who can put his thoughts on the paper. And yeah, he even has to find time to process those things that he keeps in his head in a way that would be digestible by people. So yeah, it's really hard.
Got
And they
it.
do
Okay.
understand the issue that you're explaining when someone joins the company and they have to write the content about specific topic that they don't know anything about. And yeah, like interviewing the people who have that experience is a good way, but sometimes it's just not possible, let's face it.
Right. Yeah. That is pretty good advice. All right. One last question before we wrap this up. As the CMO, right? Like since 2015, you've been working on all of these different things, right? Writing, SEO, now you've kind of transitioned to speaking at conferences and all of these things, right? So I want to talk about how do you kind of deal with like your own career aspirations and self growth as a CMO? Because you don't really have uh, someone who's kind of like, I mean, maybe the CEO is guiding you a little bit on that. How do you kind of go with your own self growth? Like, where do you go from here? Let's say Tim Soulo wants to be the CMO of Microsoft 5 years from now. How do you kind of progress towards that? Do you have any of those kind of goals?
This is a great question, and I don't have the answer, so I won't pretend that I'm a person who figured it all out. Yeah, absolutely clueless. Just keep talking to people. I talk to people. I read books. I ask the same question that you just asked me, like, what's next for other people? Where can I improve? What areas I can study? And just I'm just trying to figure out which things are interesting to me, which areas should I be typing into, which areas I shouldn't be typing into, and slowly I'm trying to learn something new every day. There's a nice graph, what like incremental improvements of 1% every day, where they take you long term. So I'm just trying to make 1% better every day my motto, and I'm trying to like improve my knowledge, my skills by just tiny 1% every day, and they'll see where it takes me in the long term.
Okay, got it. Do you have a mentor? Have you ever looked for a mentor?
Yeah, like it's mentorship is a very interesting concept. Everyone is talking about it. Everyone is talking of the awesome value, and you hear all those stories where people have mentors and their careers skyrockets. I don't have a mentor. uh I didn't like specifically tried to find one. I don't even know who could be my mentor. Like who is the person that I would want to be like in 5 or 10 years. I don't know. So yeah, I'm just trying to connect with interesting people, ask them questions that bother me, and see what their answer would be, and if their answer would resonate with my worldview. Because each of us is unique. We have our unique upbringing, we have our unique careers, and something that works for other, and we have our unique characters, our unique like strengths and weaknesses. So yeah, something that works for someone else will not necessarily work for you. But still, like having those conversations, asking them, sharing your ideas, and seeing what their feedback would be is of course helpful.
Love that. Okay, perfect. What are like the top three tools in your marketing tool set? I can name one, Ahrefs. What about the other two?
Yes. I don't even know. Like I mentioned many times, our marketing is quite unique in many ways. So we don't have Google Analytics. We don't use retargeting. But yeah, I would actually say so. If you can name Facebook ad platform, Twitter ad platform, and other ad platforms a tool, so I would say that we are quite continuously investing in Facebook and Twitter ads. We're trying to squeeze the most of what they allow us to do. So probably advertising platforms are a tool that we're using, and keep studying. What would be the third one? Well, I'm not sure if it's a marketing tool or product tool in general, but we rely quite heavily on intercom for our support chats, for some email messages, for some in-app messages, etc. So maybe intercom. Okay, I can name another tool that we use for product feedback. It's canny.io. It's a simple tool where people can just submit their feature requests and upvote them. So I think that marketing stems from the word market. So what market wants, what market needs. So when you collect feedback from people, how they see your product going forward, what kind of features they need, what kind of features they would want to pay for, it's part of the marketing, figuring out where to take your product next so that it would appeal to market. So I'd say that things like collecting product feedback are quite important for marketers.
Got it. Okay. And what are the top three tools that you survive as a remote team on?
Slack. So just for communication. Email, I wouldn't I wouldn't count it because it's so obvious. Yeah, Google Documents, maybe Notion. So we're using Notion to organize some ideas, some workflows, have our documents of how we do things, document stuff. So yeah, Notion is a pretty good tool for organizing your like marketing vision, or who's doing what, etc. uh, Basecamp for project management, and I think that's about it.
Okay, cool. All right.
Very
And
simple,
how?
very simple. Nothing too unexpected.
That's good, right? Like, keep it simple. Stupid is pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty relevant here. Okay. And how can subscribers get in touch with you if they have any questions, or if they want to kind of give you a shout out?
Yeah, these days Twitter is the best place to connect with me. TimSoulo on Twitter, Tim Soulo on Twitter. Find me, connect with me, tweet your questions at me. I'll be happy to engage and talk.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Tim. Super. Like, it was such a great episode. Really appreciate you being on here.
Thanks a lot for inviting. I hope the listeners will like it too.
Yep. Yep. All right. Bye.
Bye.